Well, good day everyone and Happy New Year and welcome to 2020. It's Tim, your living sky guy from the Paris of the Prairies, beautiful Saskatoon. And since everyone seems to be talking about what happened to them in the last 10 years, well, I figure I'll give you a little bit of a recap of some of the exciting things that have happened in my decade. Well, at the start of the decade, we had a family of 6. And in the last 10 years, our family of 6 has grown into 8 with the addition of some absolutely amazing daughters-in-law. And that group of 8 has turned into 10 with the equally exciting addition of 2 absolutely gorgeous granddaughters. But there's other things that have happened in our life as well, and specifically in my life when it comes to my photography. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So photography's always been an important part of my life since I was 13 years old, but I'm now into my second decade doing it on a regular professional basis. But with my professional aspect of photography, it's become a lot more utilitarian. So when it comes to fun with my cameras, it was usually relegated to when I was on holidays and things like that. Until 7 years ago, when I was given an amazing birthday present by my daughter. And that amazing birthday present was a membership in the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And what was so important about that was I'd had an early interest in astronomy when I was young, and when I was 13, 14 years old, but I never really took it up. And I concentrated more on my photography. But I did have a little bit of knowledge of the night sky, and I shared it with my kids as they were growing up. But when all the kids had moved out of the house, my daughter gave me a membership to the RASC. And I decided, well, okay, here's my chance to spend some more time with my cameras doing something that's fun instead of just work. And I got rekindled in an interest in astrophotography. And that particular gift is a gift that keeps on giving to me. The beauty of the night sky is amazing, and my goal is to be able to capture that beauty with my cameras. And the beauty of astrophotography is you never get perfect at it. You never get the best at it. You always can do something better. And it's given me opportunities that are just absolutely unbelievable, that I would not even have guessed I would have had 7 years ago. First and foremost, one of the things that I've done, which I've never done before, for this year, I actually put myself out there and I put together a calendar to sell to see if anyone might be potentially interested in seeing some of my night sky images. And the response to the calendar has been beyond my wildest dreams. And the beauty of this calendar is when I flip through it, it reminds me of a lot of those firsts that have happened in this last decade with my astrophotography. On January, there's an image of some star trails over an old abandoned church about 40 kilometers south of where I'm standing right now. That particular night was absolutely gorgeous. And what was I doing that night? I was chasing after a comet. Remember the Christmas comet from last year, Comet Wirtanen? Well, that's what I was doing that particular night. And yes, I did get some images of Wirtanen while it was making its pass, but that particular evening was just a gorgeous night out in the Saskatchewan prairie, trying to capture the comet and also creating some amazing images that particular night. The next page, when we're looking in February, of course, we got the constellation Orion. And that's a beautiful winter constellation, an easy one for anyone to start photographing, and an endless source of challenges that I'm looking forward to spending a lot of time with. The first challenge, though, on there comes in the month of March. And what happens in March? Orion's nice and high in the sky, as it is right now in January. But in there, amongst all the beauty, is the Orion Nebula. And in my endeavors to get better images was I invested in a small little imaging scope, a little 61 millimeter refractor from William Optics. It lets me put my cameras on the back end of it, and I can create images like this. And this is by far the best image I've created, and by far is not the best image available of that. And once again, that's what I say, the beauty of astrophotography is you're constantly working to get better. And I'm looking forward to be able to create even better images from it. So one of my goals when I got involved in astrophotography was to be able to capture the northern lights. And that one is very difficult to predict because you're never quite sure when it's going to happen. It usually happens when you least expect it. And there's a few examples in the calendar here. On April of 2020, that beautiful night, I was going out to shoot the Milky Way, and what happens? The Milky Way was there, but to the north of me, exploded the northern lights over this wetland area in one of my favorite little haunts, which is about a 30-minute drive away from here. Another date to look at is if you take a look at the calendar in July, this was a night that I learned a couple of important lessons. First lesson was never make a plan because the best laid plans of mice and men, you know what they say. And in this case, my plan was, once again, going out to this abandoned area to be able to shoot the Milky Way. And I drove a good hour and 15 minutes to get out there, get everything set up, and what happens? You make a plan, and God says, I got something else for you to look at. And instead, the aurora exploded, and I was able to get some amazing little images from that particular night. Nothing from the Milky Way, unfortunately, but that particular image there is one of my favorites. That one was actually used last year by the Saskatoon Symphony in one of their programs as part of their fundraising campaign. A stylized version of it has become part of my logo itself. The other valuable lesson I learned that night was about going on abandoned properties. Abandoned properties doesn't necessarily mean public access as well. Always make sure when you're going in an area like this that you have permission of the landowner, as well as making sure you get there early enough that you can watch for things like abandoned wells or gopher holes or anything like that that you might stumble across. I was very lucky that particular evening not to run into those sort of issues, but it is something to definitely be wary of. For the month of May, there's an image on there, some star trails over an area called Porter Lake. And what did I learn from my adventures there? An area doesn't have to be visited only once. Porter Lake is a nice spot that's not that far from Saskatoon, about a 20-minute drive, relatively dark skies, and it's a great spot that I go to when I want to just spend a little time without really making a large expedition out of it. And the beauty of having a go-to spot like that is you have the ability to explore it and explore all the angles and explore it throughout the seasons. I've had a multitude of images that I'm very proud of that have been taken throughout the 4 seasons in that area. I've met some wonderful people. I've had some amazing experiences. I was there in times where the aurora exploded and the only people were me and a carload of new Canadians who weren't there with cameras, but were there just to enjoy the beauty of the Northern Lights. And that taught me a valuable lesson. Don't always focus on what's going on with the camera. Take the time to take a look and just enjoy what's happening around you. While I was busy worrying about settings and worrying about bracketing exposures and angles, they were just off in the distance, breaking into thunderous applause as the Northern Lights wafted and changed and brightened and dimmed and changed in colors, and they were there enjoying the beauty of what God was showing them, as opposed to worrying about capturing it on film. The image for June is a prime example of spending some time and planning your work. I know I'd earlier said don't plan, but sometimes you do have to plan. And my goal at one point was to get an image of the Milky Way and the International Space Station as the two were sharing the sky at the same time. And I spent a little bit of research time to find out what night and what time and what location to be at where I could have a beautiful view of the Milky Way and the ISS as it passed through the Milky Way. And I started planning this shot 3 months in advance. This is also one of my earliest examples of a successful use of my tracking mount, because it's a 5-minute exposure at a lower ISO, so I could capture not only pinpoint stars because of the tracker, but the 5 minutes of motion taking place during the pass of the ISS. August is an example of going out and exploring beyond your neighborhood. And in this case, this was getting down to Grasslands National Park. It's about a 4-hour drive from where I live, and I'd heard about it, but I'd never experienced it until this year. And in August of 2019, we actually made 2 separate trips down there. This image is one of my most memorable ones from those trips. September is just a reminder to roll with the punches. My friend Tony and I decided one night that we were gonna just head out and once again shoot the Milky Way. And what happened? Aurora started, first very faintly, and then suddenly it exploded to fill the entire sky, north, south, east, and west. What was going to be a 1-hour excursion out in the night sky turned into a sunset to sunrise joy of beautiful aurora. October is a reminder that the best investment that you can ever make is in lenses. And this particular shot was taken with a lens that I hope one day to be able to own myself. It was loaned to me by Fuji, and it's the 8 to 16 millimeter f2.8 lens. What's unique about that lens, and in this image here, is this is one of my few images of the Milky Way where it's taken with one single image. This is not a stacked exposure. It's one 30-second exposure, tripod mounted, with a lens that is unbelievably sharp, unbelievably fast, and was able to capture the Milky Way in probably one of my best examples of a Milky Way shot. It gives me a goal. It gives me a goal to save some pennies so that I can actually invest in one of these. The hardest thing I could do was packing that lens up and sending it back to Fuji, knowing what it can do. And now, no matter what I shoot with, I'll always know it can be a little bit better. The image in November is just an indication of one of the advantages of being a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And this particular shot was taken at the Sleaford Observatory, which is about a 40-minute drive away from here. It's a beautiful location in the beautiful open prairie, a really nice relative dark sky, wonderful spots to be able to go into and get warm between those cold sessions. And it's also a quality spot to be able to spend some quality time with some like-minded friends who are enjoying the beauty of the night sky just as much as I am and understand the craziness that's involved in being an astronomer, especially in cold winter climates. And the last image is for December, and that image reminds me of perseverance. I'd had a goal to capture the planet Mercury with my camera, and Mercury is incredibly difficult to photograph. Your timing has to be just right. And it took me 2 years of trying to be able to get this image. It meant going out and trying over and over and over again in all seasons, in all temperatures, until you got just that right combination of distance from the sun, clarity in the foreground, and nice clear skies to boot. In this image, we've got Mercury, Mars, that crescent moon, and Venus forming a nice little semicircular arc in that morning sky. It was one of my first images of capturing Mercury, and I've been able to do it several times since, but by far it's my most memorable version of that. So what's the point of sharing this little bit of information with you? I guess my first point is it's never too late to try something different. I didn't get back into astronomy or astrophotography until I was 52 years old, and the last 7 years have been some amazing experiences. The hobby of astronomy and astrophotography have given me opportunities I would have never have had. I've met so many amazing people, both in person and online. I've been able to spend some evenings in some gorgeous, beautiful spots just listening to the nature around me and looking at the beauty around me. I've gotten more involved in public outreach through my work at London Drugs with helping to teach people how to learn how to photograph the night sky, as well as taking them out into the field. I've been able to meet some amazing colleagues in the astronomy community. I've made some wonderful friends through the RASC. For those who are following me on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or Facebook, thank you for your kind comments. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for your questions. I love questions, and I look forward to being able to do this for years to come and get better at it every time I do it, knowing that I will never get perfect at it. And that's the beauty of it. I look forward to working towards that goal of getting better every time and being able to share those journeys with you as well. And I hope that one day, one or all of you will be able to join me on some of those journeys.